and welcome to another episode of the Cutting Edge Figure Skating Podcast. My name is Kim Dunaway, and in this episode, I'll be covering the pairs event at the 2024 Skate America Grand Prix. This event was held in Allen, Texas for the second year in a row, which puzzled a lot of people, myself included, as to why they chose to do it a second year at the same venue. I have no idea, because I wasn't at last year's Skate America, what the crowds were like last year. I would gather they were better than they were this year, because I can't imagine that they would come back to the same venue if they had very sparse crowds. For the pairs event especially, crowds were not high at all. It was not well attended. It was weird the way that they did the seating here, because most of the tickets that were sold opposite facing the judges. And a lot of skaters choreograph their programs to face the judges and really sort of look in that direction. So a lot of times it felt like the skaters had their backs to the audience, which was really strange. This is also an NHL size arena. A lot of the competitors talked about how they trained on an Olympic size arena. And this NHL arena is smaller, and so it causes the skaters to have to adjust to that, which I thought, frankly, all of them did. But it's also important to bring that up because it is a factor in a lot of these skaters who train on larger rinks. This particular venue is smaller. Like if you think about a typical arena where you would see like an NHL team or a basketball team, there's typically three levels: a 100 level, a 200 level, which is usually smaller. That's like your club level seating, your suite access, and then a 300 level, which is the upper deck. And so this particular venue has largely just the 100 level. There is limited seating on a 200 level for the suites, which is where I was with the press. But most of the seating is within the 100 level, which is the type of venue that U.S. figure skating has preferred for Skate America these last couple of seasons. It worked really well 2 years ago in Boston. It was a smaller venue, but they were able to really fill it up and made it a really great atmosphere. Didn't really work here. It was pretty sparsely attended, like I said, especially for the pairs, but I thought all the events were pretty sparsely attended. And so I definitely don't expect for Skate America to be back in Allen, Texas next year. It was a very long time before they announced where Skate America was going to be. Nationals was very much in the same boat. So I don't know if they're struggling to find venues or exactly what the reasoning is. But that was something that I felt was unfortunate, because there's really high-level skaters in every single event here. Would have been nice to have had a little bit higher crowds. But I will say the crowds that were there were loud and mighty. All right, let's get into the competition itself. The winners here were Rika Miura and Ryoichi Kihara of Japan. No surprise here, they definitely came in as the favorites. They are the reigning world silver medalist and world champions the year before that, silver medalist the year before that. So they've had a really impressive Olympic quad for them. They're returning to the Grand Prix after an absence last year when they had to withdraw due to Ryoichi's injury. So they were unable to defend their Grand Prix final title from the previous year. So they were really happy to be back on the Grand Prix. Both of their programs here were very much improved from what we saw earlier in the season from them. In the short program, this is their Paint It Black short program that is new for them. This program is choreographed by Shaylin Bourne. I think they get really out of their box for both of these programs, really, and I think it really pays off. I think when you get yourself out of your comfort zone, as difficult as that may be, it only leads to growth, and I think this team will be much better even if they return to more of their previous style next season. It will still benefit them having stretched themselves this season. Their short program, I thought they had really nice coverage on that Group 3 lift. They just clearly looked the class of the field here, and this was a very strong pairs competition. The short program specifically, we didn't have any major errors. We had a couple of people double planned triple jumps, and we had a step out on a throw, and that was it. It was really fantastic. And even with that, they were still clearly the class of the field, 77 points for them, which is a huge score. Now they've gone 80 points, but at this point in the season, I think they can be nothing but pleased with that particular score. In their free skate, they're skating to Adios, which is the same music that Jason Brown used for his short program last season. It is choreographed by Marie France, and so they actually talked in the press conference about going up to Montreal and spending a couple of weeks there with that team and how it really forced them to get out of the box, like performing without being on the ice, in front of a mirror. That was really transformative for them, and it was something that Danny O'Shea could really relate to because they've also spent time in Montreal this season because their free skate is also choreographed by Marie France. So it's a really fantastic program. Again, much better skated here than it was. I love the intensity that they have here. They're so used to being, happy and flowy, and it's just nice to see a different side of them. Were a couple of issues here. She could not hang on to their throw triple loop, and she fell, and she turned out of the triple Salchow. But I thought the throw triple flip was a beauty, and I just really liked the program. And so excellent outing for them, even with a couple of mistakes. They won here decidedly. In second place was Ellie Cam and Danny O'Shea. And first of all, I have to tell this story before I get to their programs. So at the pairs short program press conference, it's usually about anywhere from a 15 to half an hour wait between the last skater finishing their program and the start of the press conference. Just kind of depends on how long it takes usually for the leaders to sort of get changed. So I'm sitting right behind Mel Tickena and Buralava, who finished third after the short program, and they're waiting to go up onto the podium. Well, Danny comes in and he taps on Luca's shoulder and he's like, "Do you have my pants?" And Luca has no idea what he's talking about. So he goes and gets their interpreter, and Danny asks the interpreter, and the interpreter interprets it back to Luca. So Luca goes over to his bag, unzips it, and just starts pulling everything out. And he gets to a pair of black pants, and he shows it to Danny, and Danny's like, "No, man, those are yours." And so anyway, Luca does not have the pants, and Danny's like, "Okay, no worries." Like, who was on the other side of me? And Luca's like, "Daniel," which I've now learned is what I thought was Daniil. It's pronounced Daniel Parkman. That is, and he's like, "Okay, I'll ask him." And I was very, very curious after the long program. I wanted somebody to ask Danny, like, did he get his pants? I wasn't going to do it. I didn't do it. I don't know that anybody else even heard enough of the story to even have known what it was. I just thought it was hilarious. I had to share it. Okay. Moving on to their actual skates. In their short program, skating to Rain in My Black Eyes, so I got a chance to be there for practices on Friday before they did their short program. So I got to see their run through, missed practices on Thursday because I had to work on Thursday, and so I didn't fly in until late Thursday. But I will say, Ellie landed a lot of clean throws in practice. She even landed a clean triple loop in their run through. It was low, but it was clean. Unfortunately, when the lights were on, she still ended up with a hand down on the throw, which for a lot of people that haven't seen Neville Hen Trophy, you will not have seen clean landed throws from Danny and Ellie. If the last time you saw this pair was at Worlds, you would be thrilled just to have seen her put the hand down. But I was a little disappointed for them just because I saw so many clean ones landed between practices and run through and even in the warm-ups. So unfortunately, it was not quite there, but still vastly improved over what we saw last season in competition. Side-by-side jumps were great. Their side-by-side spins were off. They hit just so many nice positions, and just the whole thing was just pretty sweet. They got level 4s on everything. Even with that, I was still very surprised that they got a 70 with the mistakes that they got. The judges have really been rewarding this team this season. Really, it started last season. They would get 64 a lot of times with a lot of mistakes, and you could see that the potential was there if they could ever get it together. And based upon what we have seen here and also in the free skate, they are very, very much a contender. Now, it's going to depend on them landing these elements when it counts, but they have 200-point potential as they hit here, and that puts them in a very, very interesting category that we haven't seen out of some of the Italian pairs, for instance, and it puts them just a notch below Hasi and Volodin, Mira Kihara, Deanna and Max. And now, what they do with that is a whole different thing. I think Ellie has been building her confidence, and it's all there. Like literally, she lands so many side by side jumps and so many throws. It's just the next step for them is just being able to do it consistently when the adrenaline's high in a competition setting. But everything else is there, and they've worked very hard, and they have so many transitions and just amazing elements in between that when you see a team like them versus the Hungarians, we'll talk about later, it's just night and day in terms of what's in between the elements. And so I think it's really paid off, the work that they've done both with Bruno Marcotte and the Ice Academy of Montreal as well. In their free skate, she fell out of the third triple flip, which again, she landed perfectly fine in warm-up, but didn't work out there. Squeaked out that triple Salchow and was still able to get the double axel off of it. So even though they got negative GOE on that element, that was a huge win for them because they have not gotten that at either of their first two competitions this season, not Nebelhorn or at John Nix. So that was a huge improvement for them to be able to get that triple Salchow landed and get that double axel off. I did see them in practice doing a 3-jump combination, like adding a double axel onto this. I think it was smart for them to just go for the 2 jumps here and try to build that muscle before they add the third one. But I definitely saw them, at least on a couple of occasions, land that triple sal, double axel combo really well. They also landed the third triple loop. So I just feel like they're just almost there, even as beautiful as both of their programs were, so close to being, 140-point free skate, which a year ago, who would have thought that? I think it would have been hard for most of us to really have envisioned that. So 130 points with 3 elements that had negative GOE. And they also had a lift and a death spiral that only got a level 3. So, like I said, I think 140 is definitely in the stratosphere if they can hit everything. And both of their programs are really choreographically just fantastic. All right, in third place here, after gushing about Danny and Ellie there, I'm now going to gush about Alicia Efimova and Misha Mitrofanoff, who really showed up and showed out at this competition. And I gotta say, a little unexpectedly so. When you look at the competition here, was really, really tight. So for 2 American teams to get on the podium is amazing. All of a sudden, it's like at Nationals last season, I was like, oh, this is going to be a great pairs event. Like, look at all these teams that we have, and it felt so flat. But it's like, if that's what we had to endure to have an improvement like we've started this season, then it was worth it. So I don't know what the prospects are for citizenship for Alicia. She born in Finland. She has competed for Russia and Germany, and now she's competed for the US. Citizenship is completely off the table for 2026, which is at this point like 15 months away, right? But I also look at 2030, and it feels like 5 years also seems like a really tough timetable to get citizenship as well. So I don't know what their prospects are for potentially competing at an Olympics. And that's way off in the future. Right now, they're really focused on trying to get on the world team and really trying to build their international resume to get there and finish top 2 at nationals. And they are well on their way here. So in the short program, Alicia was one of the skaters that doubled her triple attempt. So that was unfortunate there in terms of their technical base value, but everything else was really, really strong. I love both of their programs, but to me, the short program is the real standout piece. I love it that it's very fiery. I love the ending. The footwork is great. Their side by spins were actually really in sync. So, and again, I thought 63 with a double jump is probably at a really good place, which means if that was landed well, they could go 68 probably, which I think is would be an amazing score for them, as close to 70 as you can get in their first international season. The judges responded to them really well. In their free skate, they're skating to Je suis malade, which is very classic, almost Warhouse level music, but they do it very well. She landed the triple Salchow double axel, and I was like, hello. And it just kind of made you feel like it was going to be a good program when that happened. And I know her jumps are inconsistent. In fact, in practice, she does a lot of solo triples in practice. Here, the triple Salchow was what worked in the free skate, and the toe wasn't working. So if that becomes the more consistent jump for her, then there would be some wisdom into doing the triple Salchow in the short program instead of the triple toe. But I feel like usually it's the other way around. And so I don't know. But I was so happy to have her land one of them in the free skate. Doubled the toe again. They landed both rows. The second one was like right on the crescendo in the music. It was just really impactful. And when you watch these two skate, first of all, they're incredibly well matched, and they've seemed like they've meshed together really well. Actually asked them about that after their performance. This was before they knew that they were going to medal at that point. And Misha said that on their third day of their tryout, that it felt like they were already training. And I was in my mind, I was thinking, third day of your tryout, like how long are these pair tryouts? Like I remember reading the second mark, and they talked about the tryout with Jamie Saleh and David Peltier, and I was like, I don't remember it being that many days, but I have no idea. But I thought that was interesting that yes, even for them, they could feel that gelling, and both of them have had numerous partners. In fact, for Efimova, she actually won a silver at Skate America with Alexander Karavin back in 2019 when she was skating for Russia. And she also won a silver with Ruben Blamart at Grand Prix Espa, I think, a couple of seasons ago. So this is her third Grand Prix medal with her third partner. It's the first one for Misha. And she just, to me, seems like somebody that was just born to be a pair girl. And Ted Barton on the replay, I went back and watched the replay of it, and he basically compared them to Gordieva and Grinkov, which is extremely high praise. I probably wouldn't go that far just yet, but I will say Alicia is someone who's very, very special. What has always been the issue with her is those side by side jumps, and if they figured something out there, then that will be huge for their prospects going forward. And she was so pumped at the end of their routine, which I really liked. I like to see that competitive fire out of her. She is so serious in person. It's quite interesting, but I think they seem to balance each other out really well. So big score, 128 points. Again, not with a perfect skate. They did have the double jump. They got level 4s on everything except their twist. And the interesting thing with them is they were actually 6 points behind Cam and O'Shea in PCS. So they do have room to grow there. All right, let's move on to our fourth place team, and that was Anastasia Maltikina and Luka Burilava of Georgia. And they were in medal position after the short program. They were third, but they did have a rougher free skate to fall to fourth, just barely. I mean, it was like less than a tenth of a point, I believe, between Efimova and Mitrofanov and Maltikina and Burilava. So in this short program, they by far and away have the highest twist in the competition. Their throw, it looks clean. She was kind of dragging that free leg a little, and she was doing that in practice as well. I know a lot of people don't love the costume. They feel like it's a bit of a ripoff from Gabby Papadakis the year that they did Fame in their rhythm dance. They're skating to music from Bronski Beat, which I'm not familiar with, some kind of 80s British pop band, which explains why they look like an 80s aerobics, especially her. But honestly, I thought the routine was really fun. I didn't have any issues with it in terms of composition and choreography at all. They said after in the presser that they kind of wanted something high energy because they felt like the high energy short program worked well for them last season. The biggest issue for them in the short program was just they were really off sync on their side by side spins. And they ended up with negative GOE on that element. The free skate, though, were multiple issues. They had troubles on both of their side by side jump passes. He fell out of the double axel in their triple Salchow double axle combo that was intended to be, but he fell on the second double axel, so there was no second one. And then she fell out of her triple toe on their next solo jump. And at that point, I actually turned to Lynn Rutherford, who is a long, long time figure skating writer. And I said, I think Efimova and Mitrofanoff are going to get the silver. She was like, yeah, I think so too. But honestly, no, that would not have been enough. It was not until Luca sat on his butt on the death spiral that was the final nail in the coffin for them. Because frankly, I thought with the two jump mistakes that would be enough. But with the death spiral fall, they ended up losing that element completely. And they still almost hung on to the bronze medal. So now they did have a decent lead from the short program, but did not hold up for them with all of the mistakes that they had. That being said, I like the program. I think it's a good direction for them. It's so much better than the Queen program they did last year with the weird costumes that made no sense. So I really thought it was interesting. I liked it in practice, and I liked it again when they skated it live. And I look forward to seeing it again cleaner. All right. Our fifth place team was maybe the biggest surprise for me, and that was the Hungarian team of Maria Pavlova and Alexei Shevchenko. And they have been so consistent over the past all last season and really started at Europeans in 2022. So everybody's due for kind of a dud here and there. Let's talk about this short program because this is not my first time seeing it. They were at Shanghai Trophy and they were also at Lombardia. And sometimes programs that I just don't like grow on me. When I see them every single time, they get a little bit better or I get numb to it. This program is the opposite. Like every time I see it, I dislike it even more. And at this point, I don't think there's any way that they're going to scrap this program. I think they need to scrap this program. Either start from scratch with something new or go back to a previous old program. It's such a disaster. And frankly, it's way worse in person. I think that, and I probably said this in Shanghai, that I think I could deal with the kiss. It's the sex bomb that's just a total disaster. And I sent a tweet out on Friday that it's not Candyman bad. And Candyman was Tarasova and Morozov's free skate in the 2018 Olympic season. It was terrible. It's not that bad, but to me, it's right up there with like My Heart Belongs to Daddy. Like it is so bad. Okay. Let me talk about the actual components of the program. So they had a little hitch, a little hesitation going into the lift. Other than that, it, seemingly to most people would have seemed perfectly fine. However, long wait for the scores, which is never a good sign. It turns out she did not get a low enough position on their death spiral, and they lost that element completely. So they were not in medal position going into the free skate. Because of that, they were fourth. So they were right there and with a lot of potential to rebound. They usually do really well in the free skate. The short program doesn't score well for them even when they're clean because their composition is terrible. But so they get to the free skate and their triple toe, double axle, which is usually a very good, consistent combo for them. She just falls on the first double axle, which was, I don't know that I've seen her fall on a double axle at any point. It's just like she got sideways in the air. That was really surprising. And then they get into their forward outside death spiral, and she is just in this awful position. And they ended up with a level 1 and just barely any GOE on that. And frankly, the whole program just looked completely uninspired to me. I had heard someone say that they thought her ankle was heavily taped. I couldn't see it. I didn't go down to the mix zone to see them in person. So I just saw them from very far away. And then when I went back and watched on the replay, I couldn't tell. So I don't know if there is some kind of an injury, and that could explain some of the issues that they had in both programs. The choreographic sequence was a total fail. Like, I believe that she's supposed to go up and around his back at the beginning, and that just didn't happen. And they got off timing, and they did get 2 moves, which you have to do a minimum of 2 different moves in the choreographic sequence in order to get credit for that. If you don't, you lose the element. So they didn't lose the element, but they did get negative GOE because it was just, it's like they looked lost. Like they didn't know what was going on. And then it kind of transferred into their spin. The spin was really slow and they were still off. They ended up getting a V on it. And I said, I believe at Lombardia that they can cover up a lot of their deficiencies with a clean program. But this is a really good example of being at the other end of that spectrum. And it comes across, honestly, as a bit of a dud when they make mistakes. And it was really just 2 mistakes here in terms of the choreographic sequence and the fall. But with the spiral, and like I said, just looking uninspired in general, it just really was not a good competition for them. And being 5th here really affects their prospects for getting back to the Grand Prix final. Now, they didn't qualify for the Grand Prix final outright last year. They got in once Honk and Kunkel were unable to go. And it's not crazy that they could make it. You can make it with a 5th place, but usually you have to win your next Grand Prix. I think that's a tall order. You know, pairs, ice is slippery, anything can happen. But I think it is going to be tough for them to make it back to Grand Prix final, which potentially affects some of their momentum going into Europeans. We'll see. I just want to reinforce, in case you didn't get it the first time, I really dislike their short program. Okay, moving on to one of the bright lights of this competition, and that was Anastasia vaipan-law and Luke Digby of Great Britain. And so what I want to say is that their total at this competition was 180 points. And that may not sound like a big deal, but had they got 180 points at last year's Skate America, that would have been enough to get on the podium. Like Chelsea Liu and Balazs Nagy, who were the bronze medalists at last year's Skate America, got 177 points. So, and here they were 6th. That just shows you the quality of competition that we had here and how well a lot of these teams skated. So Anastasia and Luke got a personal best in both their short program and their free skate. Just really fantastic for a team that tried so hard just to qualify for Worlds 2 years ago, to come out here and skate as well as they did here, and the improvements that they have made. It just made my heart just so warm and so full, because you listen to this podcast long enough, you know, pairs is my absolute favorite discipline. And all of your disciplines are really measured by, at times, your weakest link, right? And so, you know, Anastasia and Luke were 20th last year at Worlds, and they didn't break 100. And so they get over 20 points here than what they did at Worlds just a few months ago is huge for them. And I cannot emphasize that enough. Their short program, they're skating to the Wisp Sings, which is music that Tarasova and Morozov used in one of their programs a few years back. I appreciate that they do a throw like later in their program. So many teams do like all of their technical elements just back to back to back. It's the twist, it's the side-by-side jumps, it's the throw. And like in the first 45 seconds of the program, like all the technical elements are over. And Deanna and Max are a team that usually do their throw later in the program. And I really appreciate Anastasia and Luke choreographing it that way too. They have beautiful throws when they were on, and they were on this weekend. They do do just side-by-side double axles in their short program, which is smart for them because it allows them to go clean, but it does affect their scoring potential a little bit. In their free skate, they just do side-by-side double toes. Perhaps those are placeholders for triple toes. They did do double axle combo well. They were just very off sync on that. So they ended up with a little bit of negative GOE there, but everything was just so well done. I really enjoyed them. They were a really highlight of the competition, and they got a really great crowd reaction for both of their programs. Seventh place here was Katie McBeath and Daniel Parkman of the U.S. making their Grand Prix debut. They'll have a second Grand Prix at Cup of China at the very end of the Grand Prix, so they're bookending the Grand Prix. In the short program, Katie doubled her triple toe, and so that definitely hurt them technically. They were in last and eighth place after the short program. They had a really nice twist. I thought they had really great energy in the program, and I could see overall an improvement from them at nationals. I could really see an improvement in Daniel I thought he was so stiff at nationals, and he's loosened up a lot more, emoting a lot better. The sub 60 score was definitely a bit of an ouch, but I think overall, good program. In their free skate, they started off with a really nice twist. Katie landed her triple toe here and did a double axle. Daniel put his hand down on his double axle. The side-by-side flips they both fell on, and Katie was really strong on the side-by-side triple flips in practice. Daniel was more up and down. And the way Katie explained it after they finished performing was that it's more maybe of a timing issue, that the triple flip is a good jump for both of them. They're just trying to get their timing right on that particular jump. I think it will pay off if they're able to get it, because it is a higher base value. It's something that one of the Russian teams that is now split up, Daria Pavluchenko and Denis Kodakin, they used to do side-by-side triple flips in their short program. And so that would help their base value. Of course, you got to land them at the end of the day. But she says that they're coming along and they feel good about them. They had for a bit of a messy beginning because they did both of their side-by-side jump passes just right back to back. But once they kind of settled in to that, the program was really well done. They had 2 clean throws. Their lifts are really good. Need to work on their pair spin. It's the second competition that they've got a V, but they were excited to get a level 4 on their death spiral, because that's something they talked about after they performed, was that they improved some of the levels that from John Nix to here, which is exactly what they want to do, just kind of constantly improving. And Katie said that having their Grand Prix in China is actually perfect for them because it gives them a whole month to sort of implement and work on some things before they compete again. And then our last place team here was the Finnish pair of Vannanen and Clarissi. They had a really good short program. I like the music choice. It kind of starts out with like a sample of For Elise. They typically have very nice side-by-side jumps. So their side-by-side triple toes here were really good. Their throws are a little bit less consistent for them. So a low landing here in the short program, but her hand did not come down. I thought their lift could be smoother. That's another place that they could sort of improve as well. And I feel like the program loses a little steam in the second half. Their free skate, however, was really rough. And so while they were ahead of McBeath and Parkman coming into the free skates, they fell behind them to finish here in last. It really started with their second set of side-by-side jumps. They survived the first one, but she doubled the Salchow. He did the triple, but then he slipped off the edge and fell. Then she put her hand down on their triple flip. I think that their reverse group 5 lift has really nice potential if they could just hold those positions a little bit longer. It feels really rushed. She fell on the throw triple loop, and then the second to last element in the program was their group 4 lift, and they got it up, but they couldn't keep it up at all, and so they didn't satisfy any features, and it was invalidated. And so ended up with less than 100 points, which is never good. So not their best, but they're really a very young team, just 20 and 23. And I like what I've seen from them in the past year. And hopefully they can use this to build on, even though it wasn't what they would have wanted. They were part of what was a very good Pierce competition. So, Pam Chinko Award. I definitely really enjoyed Mira and Kihara. They're always such a delight. But I'm giving my Pam Chinko to Efimova and Mitrofanoff. I thought both of their programs were so fantastic. Just, yeah. And I like the short program better than I like the free skate, but their free skate I felt like was more impactful overall. So specifically their free skate gets the Pam Chinko Award this week. And if you're newer to the podcast, I should explain this ever so often. The Cutting Edge is a movie. It's the only acceptable ice skating movie in my opinion. Yes, I will fight those who say Blades of Glory is acceptable. No, it is not. But I'm not the biggest Will Ferrell fan, so that's not surprising to say that. Don't cancel me, don't at me. But The Cutting Edge is a fun, cute, early 90s movie. And they do this absolutely ridiculous move called the Pam Chinko, which is basically like a headbanger into like a triple twist. It's absurd, but it's Hollywood. And so that's where it gets its name. If you see that and you're like, why does she call it the Pam Chinko? If you've never seen the movie, it would make zero sense. All right, let's look forward to Skate Canada. So unfortunately, we had a withdrawal in the last couple of days, and that was Beccari and Garisi of Italy. So we will only have 7 teams competing at Skate Canada, and there's only 2 Canadian entries because Skate Canada forgo one of their host spots. And it was quite a debate amongst a lot of the Canadian figure skating fans back in the summer when it was announced. I think it's a mistake. Like, throw somebody out there. But here we are with 7 teams. So they will be Golubeva and Giotopoulos-Moore of Australia, Lauren and Ethier and Stellato, Dudek and Deschamps from Canada, Hakan Kunkel from Germany, Danilova and Seba from the Netherlands, Chan and Hao from the US, and a Uzbekistan team that I am not familiar with, Ganesh and Chigarev. Hopefully, if that's not right, I'll get the pronunciation between now and doing the recap for Skate Canada next weekend. So for predictions, I think it's definitely going to go with the world champions here, Deanna and Max. Their short program is To Crazy in Love by Beyonce, but it's the slow cover that was used in the 50 Shades of Grey soundtrack. And they're skating to the music from a movie called The Blue Planet. It's like a documentary. It's very interesting Avatar, Way of the Water style kind of music in their free skate. And second place, I'd say probably Hakan Kunkel would be favorites to get silver. Bronze is a little bit more up in the air, but I'm going to say the Australians finally get on the podium. They were 4th at both of their Grand Prix last season, just right off the podium. And I say they finally get it done here. I don't have a lot of confidence in Chan and Hao. I would love to be proved wrong, though. And I got to say that the way that Cam and O'Shea and Alicia and Misha looked at Skate America, they certainly look like they are headed towards those top 2 spots and the world spots. There's only 2 spots this year for worlds. And so I think it's going to be very important for Chan and Hao to have a good showing here if they want to be in that conversation. Now, a year from now, when we're talking about the Olympics, and Alicia and Misha won't be eligible to compete there, nor would McPeath and Parthman because of citizenship issues with their partners, then all of a sudden Chan and Hao are very much back in that conversation. But right now, I think they're in desperate need of a really good performance and better than what we saw from them in their challenger just a month ago. All right. Thank you guys so much for listening. That completes my coverage for the pairs event for Skate America. I'll be back with the other 3 disciplines here in the next couple of days. So if you are on YouTube, make sure you subscribe to the podcast so you get notified when a new video is up. Same thing if you listen via a podcatcher like Apple Podcasts or Spotify. You can find me on all the socials at Ice Skate Podcast. I'm most active on X, but I also did post a few things on Instagram this weekend as well. Hope you have a great rest of your week.